So we did miss something. The fog. So the fog of war, which is like a mental thing when it comes to like a fog of war during war. But for Falcon BMS, it was literally a fog of war. So there would be a fog about maybe 40 miles out or something. It would just like stop. So that is something that I really appreciate because it's nice to be able to see a little bit farther than 40 miles, especially with the TGP and being in airliners or flying whatever. You know that you could see farther than 40 miles on a clear day.
I'd like to add to that point.
Okay,
Sorry
yeah,
about the fog of war.
yeah.
For several years, one thing that was very much an argument against BMS and something that people took great issue with was the not only the fog of war but the so-called bubble.
1 Fox 3 long 35964, maneuver east.
Right, for target trailer middle, Wolfenstein 35470.
Welcome to Simulated Airspace. This is a podcast, somewhat, that Aviation Plus Prime has created to get BMS players together to be able to talk about BMS and other things. So we will have discussions of Falcon BMS, DCS, IL2, Microsoft Flight Simulator, and maybe some other sims. This does not really mean that we'll only talk about simulators. We can also talk about other aviation-related events and other things that involves aviation. My expectations for the podcast to have discussions about the many aspects of flight simulation while understanding why players fly them and what makes it fun and exciting to fly in the virtual skies. So today I have Tricker and Figus for our podcast today. So I'm going to give a general introduction for those people, but first I will introduce myself. If you don't know me, I'm Aviation Plus. I do YouTube videos on YouTube about Falcon BMS and DCS sometimes. I have experience tutorials and beginner tutorials, and that's a generalization about me. But let's move on to our guests. So I'll introduce you to Fiscus. He is our other YouTube channel guy. He has a lot of videos, and I'll let him introduce himself right now.
Hello everyone. I'm Fiscus. I am from Portugal. I have a YouTube channel on which I've been mainly doing tutorials for BMS, covering a bunch of different systems. Sometimes trying out some different things like campaigns and putting them together, editing them a little bit, cutting out the dead air on them. And yeah, that's been pretty much it. Yep.
All right, thanks. Go ahead and check out his channel. He has a lot of good tutorials for beginners and some advanced tutorials, but go ahead and check them out. And next, gonna introduce Tricker here. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tricker. I have a YouTube channel called Tricker DCS, where I mainly do DCS World material. I also have some Falcon BMS stuff. I'm a real-world aviator. I fly the Airbus 320 for a major airline here in the United States. And yeah, just love to make simulated content. And I also stream on Twitch with Tricky_Tricker. And that's who the Tricker is. Thank you.
Awesome. Got a good bunch here, all YouTube channels. So lots of experience with the community on all ends with us because we all have YouTube channels with thousands of subscribers. So we're able to talk to the community as a whole in a general sense. So I know most of you are new to BMS or have been around BMS a long time, but recently, earlier in the year, Falcon BMS came out with a new terrain generator. So it makes the terrain look a little bit better. Before it was this 1990s type of thing where it had tiles and it was pretty ugly for most people. But recently we've had a lot of DCS players come over and a lot of people who are coming from other simulators or other games to see what BMS is about. So with that being said, going to give a quick little history of the Falcon BMS. So basically, it is a modification of Falcon 4.0, which came out 30 years ago. And the original game had the dynamic campaign that we'll talk about a lot tonight, and that you will see a lot in Falcon BMS and the YouTube videos that that are being created. So basically, the code was leaked in 2000 as a last-ditch effort to save the creation of the dynamic campaign, and it was way ahead of its time then, and it is still way ahead of its time today because there's nothing else that has a dynamic campaign for the game that it has. And you may ask, what is a dynamic campaign? It is a campaign that is dynamic. Just kidding. So basically, it is an entire war that has the tanks, the APCs, the aircraft, the tankers, the SAM sites, and everything you can think of, even factories, that come together, and they are simulated in this dynamic campaign to be able to have a war. So you have the factories creating ammunition, you have the tanks and the APCs and other trucks giving supplies to the other air bases, and you, as a Falcon BMS player who would fly the F-16 or F-15, are one part of this war that you go out and you try to fight the war and win the war, but you're only that small little bit of it. That's a very generalization of what the Falcon BMS and the dynamic campaign is about, and how to get it. It's a free mod, but you need to have a copy of Falcon 4.0. It can be found on Steam or GOG for about less than $15 US. Gonna ask Tricker, what when you first played BMS, what got you to play it for the first time? Was it the dynamic campaign? Was it the F-16 specifically, or was it just a something that you played as a kid, Falcon 4.0? Or kind of go over what got you in the Falcon BMS.
Okay, yeah. Mainly it was the community. I was starting out with DCS World, and the F-16 has always been my favorite aircraft. And so I knew of Falcon BMS, but I never, got into Falcon BMS. I was more into DCS, as I was just saying. And what really got me into Falcon BMS was the completed F-16. So, and I believe it was 2019 is when the DCS F-16 came out, and it was very bare bones. It was like the absolute bare bones. And I just really wanted to learn the F-16, and just so many people suggested I'd try out Falcon BMS, and that's why I ended up trying out Falcon BMS. So I never actually played it when I was younger. I only started playing it, just a few years ago. When I say a few years ago, probably 2019, 2020 now. So that's what got me into it, was basically the community was pushing me that way, and I really enjoy Falcon BMS. I really do. Really systems in depth for Falcon BMS compared to DCS at the time.
Did when you first started, was it a big contrast for the terrain and stuff? Like when you looked at it, was like, oh my goodness, this is like so different.
Yeah. I mean, well, it brought me back to like like Flight Simulator like 98 or Flight Simulator 2000. But I've always been told, so like, I fly like level D simulators like for training, and the graphics are terrible, but like everything works. And so I've kind of had that mindset where like, hey, the graphics aren't there visually, but everything works underneath. And as long as you get what you want it to do and everything works correctly, then you kind of have to put that behind you with the graphics. I know a lot of people are different, especially with the DCS World community. Like everybody loves eye-catching graphics because that's usually what brings people in. But sometimes, if you want to be more realistic, if you want to say it like that, is you might need to have, or you do need to have, realistic systems. And sometimes DCS World didn't have that for the F-16 when it wasn't as polished, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, I could see that. What about you, Fiscus? What got you into BMS, and did you play DCS before or anything else before?
No, I started with Falcon overall back a few years, I think, after it was released. If I recall, I started like in 2000 or 2001 playing Falcon 4.0 with the version that it was, which was something called SP1 or something like that. I don't recall. But I used to play that a bunch. I was completely hooked on it. When I deployed in 2006, I even had my mom mail me my my little joystick, which was a Thrustmaster or something or other, a super simple thing. But but I had my mom mail it to me so I could play it on my laptop when I was out deployed. And the people that I deployed with were like coming over, watching me play, and they were like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm playing. I'm flying the F-16." And they were like, "Well, when do you shoot things? Like, when does the fighting start?" And I'm trying to explain this is not this is not how this works. This is not all about going up there and shooting everything. And they were like, "Bah, it sucks. Goodbye," and they went off do something else. But yeah, so I kept with that for a while, and then I played Allied Force when that came out. I don't recall when that was, but I played a bunch of Allied Force, and then I started on BMS straight up, and I want to say around 2013 or 14 when I came across it. And then yeah, played the BMS for a long time. Went over to DCS in 2018. If I recall, that was the date when the F-18 was coming out for DCS. I went with a bunch of the group that I was with back then. Went over to DCS. Played mainly DCS. Still had BMS installed. Fired it up from time to time, but was mainly DCS focused for a while there for a few years, and then I came back to DCS permanently. I want to say 2023, right around when 4.37 came out. So yeah, that's my story so far with BMS.
Awesome. Great to hear. Great to hear. My story, you guys might not know most about it, but the viewers might not know either. I started maybe did commercial stuff. So I was starting with Flight Simulator X, like almost 20 years ago now, 2006 or something. So that's what I did, mostly Flight Simulator X stuff. I did the PMDG 737. I would fly around with that, used FS passengers to help me out and like give it a purpose. Because when you're flying around in a commercial simulator, sometimes you don't really have that purpose. So FS passengers kind of gave me that purpose by simulating passengers, simulating money, simulating you buying aircraft. So it kind of gave me a purpose of actually flying. After that, I got into DCS, which then was called what's it called? It's not Flaming Cliffs, but Modern Air Combat Lock-On. So it was called that then. So I played that for a little bit, for a while, and then played DCS, and then about in 2016, I started playing BMS. I think it was like 4.33 or something. I think it was. Played that a little bit back and forth. Went back and forth between DCS and BMS. Started playing BMS, got with a group. Getting with the group is the best way to learn how to do things. So accelerated my learning process, got better with flight leading and playing online. Playing with other people who are better than you is how you learn very, very quickly. And then created a channel that same year in 2016, actually New Year's Eve of 2016. So December 31st, 2016, I made my channel, and then it went from there. Started learning. The best way to learn is to teach others, because you need to know what you're talking about. Because if you're teaching others the wrong thing, that's not always good. But that is how you learn stuff, to make sure that you're teaching them something that's correct. So yeah, BMS. What got me with BMS is the F-16. I love the F-16. The dynamic campaign was something that I was interested in, but didn't really hook me. Mostly what got me into it was playing with others, and they actually created missions beforehand. So the ability to play online with other people was what really hooked me on BMS.
So instead of going out to party for New Year's Eve, you decided to make a aviation simulator channel.
Exactly. Yep. I was in my office, and I think I was at Edwards at the time. So I was at Edwards, so in the middle of nowhere. Go to Google, search up Edwards Air Force Base, and you could see how secluded I was. But you could that's basically what I did. did that and went from there. I think my first video was a DCS video of the F-15 Flaming Cliffs, playing online using the, I guess everybody calls it the airquake. So going in, shooting people down, coming back and dying. But that was my first video on YouTube. I think it's still there, but that was my first thing.
Nice.
So it's funny how the BMS channel, his first video was DCS, so that's kind of ironic.
Don't
You
worry.
guys-
When I started creating, I think, yeah, for sure. I started creating content for DCS. It was like some live streams that I used to do in VR. They looked awful back when I flew DCS. And then it was when I came over to BMS again in 2023 that I started creating content for the BMS. And then it was mostly when I created my video, it wasn't like to reach out to people that were to me anonymous. It was to teach the people that I flew with, and I still am a part of this group, the 7-2 Squadron. It was mostly to teach them how to use certain weapons. If I'm not mistaken, the first one I did for BMS was to try to teach them how to use GBU 54. And disclaimer, I love the GBU 54. I would make sweet love to the weapon. But they didn't know how to use it. So, like, it came up on one of our flights, and they were talking about GPU 12 has limitations, but then we could take the GPU 38 that has limitations. And I suggested, why not the GPU 54? It's awesome. And they were telling me, I don't know how to use the weapon. I have no idea. Might as well not bring it. So I went, recorded a tutorial, quick tutorial in VR for it, and it was well received. I recorded some other stuff for Harms, I think, and for Mavericks and for laser guided weapons. Those were well received, but I wasn't happy with how they looked, how they turned out, how I was making them. And then I went and started doing them edited, and I've been very happy with the results, and especially how they've been received, and how they've been helping people. And I think you guys have the same experience with your videos teaching things.
Yes, teaching, a lot of people don't think, or it's hard to find things that you don't know, because like what I always say, it's hard to know what you don't know. So if you don't know something, you're not going to know about it because you don't know about it. So it's really good to be able to give back to the community by making videos of to teach people. But like I said before, playing online is a very quick way to understand the unknowns that you don't know about. So you might not, let's say you don't know about the GBU 54. Let's say you don't know it exists at all. And I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, it has GPS and laser guided options for it.
That is correct, yes.
Yes. So if you're unknown about that weapon at all, you just don't know about it. But if you watch a video about it, and you are now aware of it, you now know about it. So that's the biggest thing with Falcon BMS. There's more things you don't know about than things you do know about, and that's a thing that us YouTubers kind of try to give back to the community so people can understand.
I'm curious why the GBU 54 is what you would make love to. Is it the curves?
Yes, the curves and that nose of it. It's like, anyway.
Or is it the dual capability?
I love me some dual capability.
Oh goodness!
You know that.
Oh boy. All right. So
I like it. I like it.
I like it.
This is not an aviation podcast at all.
It is. It's about GB54s. So with that being said, all of that with DCS, let's move on to the new terrain in Falcon BMS. When it first came out, I'm gonna go with Fiscus first. What was your initial your initial ideas of it? Was it like something that a game changer? Was it something that you just wanted, that you just wished forever? Was it something that was like kind of like, it's good terrain, but it doesn't really affect my BVR timeline at 30,000 feet? Kind of go over what your initial thing was.
Okay, before it came out, I'm with Tricker. As in, look, I'm playing BMS. I know what it is. I've known what it is for a while. I knew what the terrain was. I had no problem with it because what was important to me was, do the systems work? Do the aircraft perform in a realistic way? The F-16 specifically. For me, that was the main point. Sure, it'd be great to have terrain that looks good. It'd be nice to look at because, like doing those low-level flights, sometimes looking at the terrain was an eyesore. But should I really be looking down at the terrain, or should I be looking at like the route, at like if I see some smoke trails coming up, if where my flight is, or where I am in relation to the flight. So I was like, cool, it's coming out, it's going to look good, awesome. When it did came out, when it did come out, I was incredibly surprised at how good a job they made, the BMS dev team, at how amazing the terrain is, especially on Balkans. So far, I've only tried Korea with the default terrain that everybody has, Korea, Balkans, and ITO. But I was especially surprised with Balkans. The terrain there looks incredible, especially with the 16K textures. I think that that makes, I don't know, the especially like when you're around the base doing base ops, getting ready to fly, it just the missions themselves don't change. The way your experience overall, I was surprised at how much more enjoyable I found missions not having that terrain eyesore. It surprised myself that how good it felt flying that with the terrain like that. I would have flown in it anyways. I would have flown it even if it wasn't that well made, but I was extremely happy that it was that high of a quality. That was how it felt for me, at least.
Yeah, for me, so some people think I don't enjoy the work that the devs have done, but I completely enjoy it. It's something that's needed. Updates graphically and systematically are always important. But this is just my opinion, and that the terrain is something that is depends on what you're doing in the mission. If you're doing a training mission, doing some tack turns, then sure, the terrain looks very, very nice, and you look at it a lot. But if you are in a lane of four people, or 4 lanes, and each lane has their own groups to go after in a BVR scenario, you're not looking at the terrain during the actual mission. On takeoff and during Miller time, sure, you're looking at the terrain because that's, half the stuff to look at. You got the sky and you got the terrain. So you're not going to look at the sky because it's just blue for the most part, but you are going to look at the terrain. It's just more of a, people say it's immersion, but immersion is more of how much you're in the actual situation. So when you're doing a BVR scenario, your Fox 3 here, bullseye this, lead group, trail group, skate, short skate, like that's all immersion. That has nothing to do with the terrain that's around you. So it just depends on the stage that you are in the simulator where certain things are more important than others. So for the terrain, for example, it's more important at the beginning when you take off, and it's more important when you land. During the actual mission, if you're not doing low-level stuff, it's not as important. And then that also changes for everyone's personal opinions on when it's more important for terrain. But overall, terrain is something that got a lot of people from DCS to come over, and they are figuring out that the terrain is more than the actual simulator because it's more systematically based, so more systems that are more accurate or try to be more accurate. But that's my take on the new terrain in Falcon BMS. It's not quite a game changer, but it is something that we could all love and come together and agree on.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. You guys knocked it out of the park for the terrain. Um, I still think it looks a lot better than it used to. And you guys already hit all the points. It just depends on the situation where you're at. I do a lot of low level stuff, and that's mainly for I like doing challenging. I guess not that high level stuff is not challenging, but I like to stay low and do like these little challenging canyon run kind of things. And it also looks really good for content purposes because that kind of keeps the viewers involved, I guess, a little bit more. But the low level terrain, could still use a lot of work, I think, in my opinion, for Falcon BMS. But again, it's not a game changer for me. It's not going to prevent me from playing the game or playing the simulator, if you will. Sorry, got to make sure I use the right terms here.
Yeah, some people might get a little triggered off of that.
Might get a little triggered.
Yeah.
Sorry. But yeah, I don't really have anything. I don't really have anything.
Offended a bunch of people.
I don't really have anything to add to the terrain. You guys hit it out of the park with that.
Well, I have some. So we did miss something. The fog. So the fog of war, which is like a mental thing when it comes to like a fog of war during war. But for Falcon BMS, it was literally a fog of war. So there would be a fog about maybe 40 miles out or something. It would just like stop. So that is something that I really appreciate because it's nice to be able to see a little bit farther than 40 miles, especially with the TGP and being in airliners or flying whatever. That you could see farther than 40 miles on a clear day. So that's something that's really good because you could actually see things a little bit farther out, and the atmospheric improvements that the BMS has made, that's also very good as well. But when it comes to,
I'd like to add to that point. Sorry,
Okay, yeah.
About the fog of war.
Yeah.
For several years, one thing that was very much an argument against BMS and something that people took great issue with was not only the fog of war but the so-called bubble. Whereas if you were, for example, playing in single player and you were at whatever point, like say at Osan Air Base, the world did not exist past how far away was it? It was like I don't recall. There was a number. I want to say 60 miles.
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I don't have the number off the top of my head. But for a while there was that, like, anything past that distance, technically on the sim did not exist, and that was a problem for a lot of people. I remember back when I used to play with the first Virtual Fighter Wing, we had a group of guys that focused on the Hornet, and the Hornet has weapons that are like the Slam ER that have extreme range. And they used to have quite a bit of trouble making that work with the bubble, because technically if they left a certain area, if they went away from it after a time, not only could they not see the target through the weapon's camera, but they'd also lose the weapon itself. So that was a problem, and I'm really happy that that thing with the bubble was quote unquote fixed, and it's in the past now, because I think it adds another layer of depth to BMS as well.
Yeah, just in Falcon Lounge Discord, I think Mav JP, I think he explained it as where it's not really the bubble of the player, it's more of the bubble of the unit. So if you have a tank that's 100 miles from you, and an object gets within, like, it could be either your wingman, like an AI wingman, or something else. So it's just something has to get around there that's being controlled by a player, has to get in that bubble for it to actually spawn and like physically be. It exists, but it's just simulated in the dynamic campaign. So we have it where I think you've seen it in, or I've seen it in TAC view, where you're flying in TAC view and then everything spawns like 100 miles out, and then once it spawns, the aircraft are in random places. Like the aircraft is in literally a dogfight with a helicopter or something, So that's what it was doing during the simulation, and then it actually uh, improves on its realisticness of not really a simulation, but it actually goes to realistic where the airplanes are not dogfighting the helicopter anymore. They're actually coming towards you because you spawn them. You're in their bubble now of responsibility, so they actually know that you're there. So that was something that MavJP kind of explained, which is kind of the same thing as a bubble for the humans, but it's more of a bubble for the actual units that are spawning out there. And so, yeah, the bubble, the terrain. In your experience, Tricker, what is the general consensus of the terrain, and how many players have kind of moved to BMS? Just because I think it's mostly because of the BMS terrain thing, but it's other topics that I won't go about in the drama that DCS is having. But what are kind of the things that you see that players from DCS are coming to BMS?
I think it's kind of a challenging question because I honestly don't know. I stream Falcon BMS every now and then, and I really enjoy streaming it. And I get hundreds of people that come in and enjoy, and they comment on certain situations. There's always this DCS versus Falcon BMS thing going on.
Yeah, all the time.
Or War Thunder. Like there's always this this battle going on between people. So anyway, I stream DCS mainly, and then when I do stream Falcon BMS, I do bring in a lot of people, and they ask a lot of questions, which is great. And I feel like I've really opened up a lot of the people from DCS to come to the Falcon BMS side. I'm not a huge Falcon BMSer. I do love Falcon BMS, and I enjoy doing multiplayer flights, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit later. But I really enjoy that aspect of the multiplayer for Falcon BMS. I'm not a big fan of Falcon BMS just doing it by myself, but I'm not really that way with other games as well, like DCS. I can't stand playing by myself. But back on topic, I feel like when I'm streaming, like a lot of people say that they'll come over to Falcon BMS because of the terrain, or because of the F-16 simulated a lot more than DCS World F-16. But I can't really give you like an accurate number of like how many people are leaving or coming, because they're just part of the stream. It's just a couple hundred people out of thousands of people that I interact with live, that is.
Oh yeah. There's no number on it, but there's definitely, at least being in Falcon Lounge.
There's definitely an interest. There's definitely an interest.
Yeah.
I'll say that, but I can't really give you an accurate like, hey, this like hundreds of people are flocking over to
Flocking
Falcon
over.
BMS because of this. Because just food for thought, like when this is a major thing, and I've been hearing this for years now, and I've been doing DCS for like 9 years. Everyone was like, I'm going to come over to Falcon BMS when it gets VR support. And when Falcon BMS got VR support, then a lot of the people that I hang out with, or people that come to the stream all the time, they're like, well, I'll just wait until like the next update. And it seems like a lot of people just keep putting it off. But I know a lot of people did come over for the Falcon BMS VR support, and I've heard great things about it. I don't have any personal experience with the VR and BMS.
Yeah,
that was a big thing back in the day. I remember back when VR was released. That was part of the reason why I transitioned over to BMS, because I was flying in VR a whole lot back then. And again, I was kind of
you don't do it anymore.
dissatisfied. VR, I haven't had the chance for it because the VR headset that I purchased has many problems. And I haven't been able to figure them out. Haven't had the time. It's definitely severe to track IR. Maybe not for making content, as you know, but for experience for the person that's flying, it's definitely something else. But I when I transitioned over, because one, I was very frustrated with what was going on with DCS at that point, and because BMS finally has VR now, it's time. I'm gonna go, and so I came. After And what you were talking about, I think a lot of people are still resistant. Maybe not resist. Maybe resistant is not the right term, but some people are still hanging on to a lot of people. I don't. I'm not trying, and I never tried to say you need to fly just this. I mean, there's the different simulators have different strengths. I never tried to say like, okay, use BMS is great and you should not fly anything else. No DCS, no IL2. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I think people are hesitant to try out BMS now that it has all that stuff, VR, new terrain, and all that. Is because DCS offers something that BMS does not, which is helicopters, which is other modules. BMS is getting better at it because they just implemented, or they a while back they implemented the F-16C, but DCS has all these types of modules of aircraft that people, for one reason or another, are very passionate about. Phantom, the Hornets, the Tomcat, the upcoming Eurofighter, all those types of modules that we just don't have in BMS, and I understand why they feel some sort of attachment to DCS because of that, or the helicopters, like I said, the Apache, the Hind, all the other helicopters that DCS has in there. But yeah, that's what I think at least.
Yeah, that's a very good point. We'll definitely talk about, for those listening, we'll definitely talk about a whole discussion on why we think different things happen, our opinions and stuff. So we'll definitely talk back and forth to why people play this more than that, and we'll go into a more discussion with how we think that works. But yes, helicopters is something that BMS does not have, and DCS has helicopters, and that's a big thing that people want. Because it's a certain thing to get into, and it's like more of a close, kind of like a close combat when it comes to current combat aviation and simulators. Let's see if we can go back to the terrain here. So did any of you have any issues with the terrain at first? Like, did it not the terrain, like the visual of it, but did it have any graphical limitations or optimization that was needed? Because for me, I had a 3070 Ti, and it has 8 gigabytes. Something NVIDIA didn't create a 16 or 12 gigabyte 3070 Ti. So I had an 8 gigabyte VRAM for my graphics card, and BMS did not like it. So on the ground with people and airplanes, I got about 15 to 20 frames per second in a normal mission with like 10 people or so. But when I got in the air, it went to about 50 or 60. So on the ground, I was not able to use 15 to 20 frames per second on the ground. So I actually had to upgrade, just in a general sense, and for BMS, upgraded to a 5070 Ti, which has 16 gigabytes of VRAM, and it works flawlessly now because I was so used to Falcon BMS 4.37 without the terrain of getting basically 60 on the ground, 120 in the air. Like, it was never an issue when it comes to graphics because of the terrain that it had before. But did any of you have any problems with the new terrain initially?
Yeah, so now that you mention it, I do remember, because I think it's been 3 or 4 months now since the terrain update actually came out. But I do remember on stream, like, I didn't have any issues personally, but I do have a 4090 with an AMD 99X, 9950X 3D. So I got a monster machine to run, Falcon BMS, this 1990 simulator. But I didn't have any issues personally, but I do remember while streaming, like I said, I had a few hundred people that were watching, and they were all saying, not all of them, but I mean, like, there was quite a few people I remember that were saying that they couldn't run the new Falcon BMS. What was it? Is it 16K textures? I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
So
16K
textures,
tiles. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what they were just saying. And now that you mentioned that, I do remember there were certain people, I guess, that were in your situation that were having issues. I'm assuming you said you upgraded. Is that what you said you did?
Yeah, upgraded from a 3070 Ti to a 5070 Ti. So
Oh wow.
basically, it's a VRAM thing, because you can have 16K textures on an 8 gigabyte VRAM is probably not enough. So upgrading that VRAM helps out with the stuttering because it has to load the textures in the distance, and the 16
Right.
gigabytes helps out with that storage basically.
Okay. You could make a little advertisement for NVIDIA. I
know,
upgraded to the 5070 for Falcon
5070,
BMS.
and it was right before they went down because it was expensive, and then Amazon Prime had their little sale thing, and then it went down even more after the Amazon Prime. But we're not going to go on Amazon Prime, but it was definitely
So even though
even
your
though my name is Prime,
you
yeah,
don't get any
Uh,
special deals.
I don't get special deals. I guess I got primed in Amazon Prime, I guess.
You can let everybody know that you work with Bezos. It's
Oh,
okay.
no, if I did, then I wouldn't have a podcast or anything like that. I would just, be billions of dollars.
True.
I guess. For me, performance wise, I didn't have any issues because a couple of months before the terrain update came out, before 4.38 came out, I was having issues with the PC that I used to have. A lot of issues, and it would just like switch off, and the people that I used to take it to didn't really. They at some point they were just shrugging it. We don't know what the deal with this is. And then I thought, yeah, I might as well get a new computer. So I got a new computer, which is the one I'm using, which has a 5080, NVIDIA 5080. So I did not have any issues. Been working just fine, even streaming and recording. But like Tricker, I came across a lot of people both in streaming and in the comments of my video saying the terrain looks great, but I can't run it. I'm sticking to 4.37 because this is too much for my PC, which is, I guess, it is what it is. I mean, I know DCS, for example, the terrain that it has, it can be very system. What's the
System
what's the
heavy.
term?
Yeah, hungry. Yeah.
Yeah, system heavy.
So
So
if you-
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just, do you know off the top of your head for the viewers or listeners, like if you didn't upgrade, so like how many gigabytes of space do these 16K tiles take? I don't remember off the top of my head.
I can check. I downloaded it. I don't think I deleted them. Ooh, where am I gonna find these? Let me see.
I think it's a
Was it-
number. I think it was like 18 or 20
Okay.
for just KTO. So
Okay.
it's a maybe 8, something like that. But it was more than like 5 or 6. Because I remember there
Wait
was
a second. There's 16K there's 16K download for KTO. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, when 4.38 released, there was an issue with downloading it, and there was a torrent where you could download the 16K textures by itself.
Oh, I thought, okay. So the 16K technically is like comes with the update itself with 4.38.
Yes.
So we're all running 16K technically.
Yeah, if you didn't
Like-
do anything, it's probably 16K. You have to do something for it to be
right.
8K.
Okay. I was asking because like Falcons had like its installer, and then you had to run to download something else, another installer for the 16K for that theater, and
Yeah,
that's
I
why
remember-
I
I
was
remember
wondering
doing
if
that.
it's something. I was wondering if there was something like for KTO for that, but I guess not.
It might have been a check
but-
mark or something, but for it was supposed to be default, so you could always turn it off. Downloading it after the fact is sometimes problematic, but
Right.
but yeah. I even have some people playing with a laptop, and I mean, you could basically run anything with a laptop, but well, for the most part, the terrain right now in Falcon BMS 4.38 is not optimized at all, and we're all kind of coming to the same point and saying that it's not optimized. In update 1, it is supposed to be optimized, and it's supposed to be better for the optimization of people's hardware. So I have a lot of people commenting and looking on the forums and saying that, well, I have my 1070, and I could barely run BMS, but I can run DCS just fine. Like, well, that's because DCS has been optimized for years now, and BMS just got their new terrain 7 months ago. So it's the optimization that's the issue here, and they are working on it. So promise everyone's working on it, and in the next update it should be better on this next update.
So are people like playing BMS on the road on a laptop? Is that what you're trying to get at, or they
Well,
just have a laptop
I
at
think
home?
that's just what they have, a laptop. That's their primary device to play simulators.
Okay.
And for us, I never really got into laptop stuff because one, it's expensive, and two, it's not as, the heat is not as doesn't disperse heat as easy because it's a laptop. And having an actual tower gives you some more customization, and it's a little bit cheaper, and you get to have some fun making it. So that's this. I guess people just like the laptop because it's just easier. It's kind of like a console versus PC kind of argument here, where they just buy a console because it's easier than buying a PC and having to build it. Maybe.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. Like I have a laptop for the road when I'm on my overnights, but I would never try to play like DCS or Falcon BMS on the road because I don't want to take all my stuff going through like TSA. How funny would that be?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
sir,
bring
what
it.
is it? What is this? This is Track IR. It's a head tracker. I'm trying to
Yes.
explain that.
Like, why do you have a
or
controller?
your-
Right.
yeah, or your joystick. Yeah, what is this?
Yeah.
Well,
I can explain.
No, I just
The-
for some reason when you said laptop, I just automatically thought like people were playing like on the road or something.
Yeah, I get.
you'd be surprised.
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
at how many people play BMS on laptops. I've seen like between comments and people on my live streams bringing that up, like for some reason or another, it come out. They come out and say, "Hey, I play on my laptop." I see that more often than I initially thought.
Yeah, I get
Yeah,
that a lot
just blew
too.
my mind.
Because they buy a gaming laptop. For a little while, it was easier to, during the I guess the crypto thing, it was easier to buy a computer already made than it was to buy a computer individually and build it. So that might have been the craze of getting it. But yeah, there are definitely people who primarily or only have a laptop to be able to play these games, which is it's okay, but it's a little
they
different.
have a pretty powerful like USB hub or something because like some laptops only have like 1 or 2 USB ports.
Yeah, there's that, and there's people who use. I mean, we all know people use mouse and keyboard. People use the controller. That's crazy to me how they could do that. But it's kind of like, in my opinion, it's kind of like negative training when you're using a controller or using a keyboard where you're getting used to it. You play for it, I don't know, 2 years or whatever, and you get the money, or you go out and buy a HOTAS and you got to learn literally everything else. Like not even once over. You have to learn it 2 or 3 times over because you're used to it for that many years, instead of just getting a HOTAS for the first time, or at least a general, very cheap HOTAS, so you can get that muscle memory down instead of using a keyboard and mouse or a controller.
Yeah. I mean, many moons ago, I used to, like when I was like 15 or 16, I didn't have a HOTAS or a yoke. So like when I first got into flight sims, like Microsoft 98, Flight Sim 98, I would just use mouse and keyboard. It was the weirdest thing to do, but that's how I started until, I got a job and could afford, a HOTAS. And then that's when I finally got a HOTAS. It was like the X52 or something like that.
Yeah, I had an X52 as well. Yep.
Yeah.
I was like that as well for when I started back flying Falcon, mouse and keyboards, and I still remember. I think the way to maneuver the aircraft was you had to press and hold Control and Shift at the same time, and then the arrow keys. It was it was bizarre.
Yeah, it's
But
bizarre.
then, yeah, but I like Tricker. I was a teenager. I didn't have a job, so good luck convincing my mom. Hey, I need a joystick. She'd be asking me, "What for? To fly
Fly
games."
simulator.
I think not.
Can you
She'd be
buy
like,
this
"No."
$200 thing for me?
Please.
Yeah.
I forgot how much the X52 was, but it wasn't cheap.
No, it wasn't. I had one too for a while, and no, it wasn't cheap at all.
Yeah, it's always good when you first get your new controller, and you're like, "Whoa, this is so different," and you start doing stuff, and it like sparks your interest on the continuing. But there's a point in time where some people probably find out when flying with a mouse and keyboard, especially if it's competitive. So if you're in DCS with a mouse and keyboard, it's probably not as intuitive as a person with the controller. But then again, I've played some War Thunder matches long time ago where you have the people. There's like three types of people. There's the ones that uses the mouse or just the keyboard, people that use the mouse, and the people that uses the HOTAS. Sometimes sometimes with the mouse you're more accurate than with a joystick. So that's another aspect to mouse and keyboard. But with DCS, that would not be the case because you're not always gunning people around. But in War Thunder, that's definitely an issue when it comes to the accuracy of the peripherals that you have based on the competitive aspect of the game that you're playing.
Yeah, no, you're totally right because I do both for War Thunder. I know we're getting off topic here, but like I do keyboard and mouse mainly. But then if you do simulator mode for War Thunder, it took me a long time, but I finally did bind all my key bindings. And sim mode's actually been pretty fun for like World War II, aircraft. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start going into the tips for newcomers. So we all have dealt with newcomers at some point because we have channels. Pretty sure we've flown with a new person who's flown for the first time in a online match or something. But for me, there's so many different approaches for Falcon BMS and for any hobby for that matter. But with BMS making it different than other hobbies. So other hobbies like chess or I don't know, crafting, collecting baseball cards, whatever have you. It's they have their own little teaching of what is what and where is what and different things like that. But when it comes to Falcon BMS and simulators, it's a kind of like a parallel of real life, where in real life you wouldn't expect to get your private pilot's license or your instrument license or commercial license within a year or something. So with Falcon BMS and DCS, you're learning how to aviate, navigate, and communicate all at once while getting a computer that runs it, while getting the hardware that you need, while going to work, school, whatever. So it's more of a hobby, which gives you that sense of, I guess, you just think it should be quick and it should be fun. But when it comes to aviation, it's not always fun, especially when you're starting, because you have to learn what you're doing first. So there's a lot of different things with Falcon BMS. So with Tricker, so when you started aviation, what was some of the milestones and hard points that you noticed while getting your private pilot's license or your commercial license or anything like that that kind of can be used in the Falcon BMS and DCS simulator world?
That's a tough question because I got my ratings back in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no YouTube, and the internet was still kind of taken off back then. So I basically had to use books, read books, and I'm a visual learner. So everybody has different type of learning styles, and I'm more of a visual learner. So I learned the most when I was actually doing what I was supposed to be doing. So you would read about it, like trying to do like turns around a point or understanding wind. For some reason, like it didn't really make sense to me sometimes while reading it. But then when you go up into the sky and you can actually do it and feel it, you can put both of them together and then you finally learn it. So nowadays, like I feel like it's a lot easier to get to this information because now you got all these pilots out there that are making free YouTube content that are putting out stuff for everybody that can basically go do whatever you want. Like for Microsoft Flight Sim, you got like Boeing pilots teaching like 777 stuff, 737 stuff. Same with the Airbus pilots. So I feel like there's so much stuff that is accessible these days, and it helps people learn. And that's the reason usually why I make these like 60-second short videos on how to start different aircraft because I fly every module in DCS. And sometimes if you don't use it, you lose it. So sometimes I haven't flown something for 3 to 4 months and I'm like, all right, well, I remember some of the steps how to start something, but now I need to refresh my memory. So that was the reason why I made some of these 60-second shorts was for myself. But then it kind of took off and like a lot of people enjoy it because it helps, them refresh their memory. But I just feel like there's so much accessible information these days and I learn best from videos, I think, and backing it up with documentation as manuals. Like in DCS, we have Chuck's guides or the manuals themselves. And then in Falcon BMS, you know, I already know your channel. You always preach the threat. What is it? The threat PDF file or whatever it's called.
Yeah, the threat guide.
Yeah, threat
Yeah,
guide. That's a
yep.
really good. That's a really good guide, by the way. And I know it used to be called something else before it was like adopted for whoever created it. I believe it was called something else. Whoever created it. But no, it was a pretty good document. And same with Falcon BMS. There's tons of good documentation out there for everybody to go out and just pick up something and try to learn something on themselves.
And that's a good way of, because people think as you said, people learn different in all aspects. When it comes to the manuals in BMS, people say that it's too long. They don't want to read it. However, when you reference them a video, they say the video is too long. They don't want to watch it. So it's like, where do you want to get your information from? And I know in real life, usually you have an instructor to more or less spoon feed you the information, or at least spoon feed you what is needed at the end of this journey. So, but you still have to go out and seek and learn what you want to, or what your instructor is telling you to learn. So it's still homework to be involved with aviation, and that can kind of transfer into Falcon BMS. You can't just fly once a month and expect to learn something the next month that you start flying. You need to at least read it for a little while, watch videos, as Tricker said, watch some shorts, watch other people fly. So it's definitely some homework in BMS and other simulators as well, or other hobbies as well. But with aviation in general, you need to learn more things than when you're flying. You need to do it in your off time to be able to learn stuff, to be able to read the manuals, watch videos, and do different things like that.
It's a good point you make, because when I was already an airline pilot, by the way, before I got into like combat flight sims. So like 2016 is when I fully got into like DCS world, but I was already an airline pilot for a long time already at that point. But I didn't understand, like I knew how to fly, but I didn't understand all this combat stuff. So like I would go up in the A10 in DCS world and I could fly flawlessly, but then I would get shot down all the time because I didn't understand what was going on. And my biggest thing back in 2016, like there wasn't a lot of YouTube channels out there that would cover this kind of information. So it was all just the manuals. And the biggest thing for me was watching people on Twitch. And I would actually watch, you know, other people that, you know, weren't pilots and they were actually doing a fantastic job. And I was learning from them and asking questions. And that's how like I got started into all of this. And then that's why I really love streaming, is especially like DCS or BMS, because people ask questions and then it really creates a atmosphere where you can learn together, kind of thing.
I have a quick question, Tricker. Did you
Mhm.
ever consider making content other than games, and especially on for your for like real
You know,
life
like
flying for
Microsoft
your
Flight
channel?
Simulator.
No. Like for your actual, like showing your actual job. I know I don't know how it works in airlines. What securities are there in place where you can and cannot record? But if there is an opportunity, if it's at all possible, like you set up a GoPro or something like that on the cockpit, if that's
Yeah,
a possibility, did you
that's
ever consider doing it as content for your channel?
that's not actually that's not really, you know, it's not a thing that you can actually do here in the United States. I know like a lot of people in Europe do it. It's kind of frowned upon, like to do that kind of stuff in the United States, and you have to get like pre-approval, I believe, with the FAA, and it's it's a long process, I believe, and I don't want to do any of that kind of stuff. I like, you know, I like to keep my work stuff private, and I just like to come online and do combat sims because I can't do that in real life, you know. So that's why I do combat stuff, because it gets me to be able to do other things that I haven't been able to do and have fun in that kind of situation.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I actually had no idea that it was that difficult to do that in the United States.
I don't
Because
know all the exact rules about that. I just know that's kind of frowned upon here in the United States, like to do like GoPro and so like or record stuff in the cockpit. You know, you're supposed to be flying at that point, and you know, not
Yeah,
doing
it's like
that.
a
Right.
what was it like an environment, sterile
It's like
environment. You
sterile
can't,
environment.
yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah.
can't be doing
So
distractions.
and like
Yeah,
I
because
like to step away. Like no, I appreciate the question. I just like to step away from work stuff with my channel, if you will. Like I use my channel to have fun. It's a hobby for me, if you will.
right. That makes sense. But that surprises me because like it show up on my feed. I bet it does on yours as well. Some from time to time on your YouTube feed of like landings, like real life pilots landing on whatever
Yeah, you talk about
whatever
like
airport it is.
crosswind, yeah, like super crosswind landings or I don't really
Yeah.
watch that kind of stuff. Like my guilty pleasure, like getting off topic. My guilty pleasure is like watching body cam like cop videos. Like I don't know, I just love watching cops for some reason. So,
He's reaching.
yeah.
He's
But
reaching.
no, I appreciate the question.
Yeah,
No,
it's-
but it makes sense that you want to keep the if you do that for if you do aviation for a job, it makes sense that some aspect of it you want to keep off of your hobby.
Yeah, of course. And I love, I go through phases sometimes where like I make a lot of content, and then sometimes I shy away from making content because I kind of get a little burnt out. Maybe because I'm flying so much in real life that when I get home, I don't want to be flying again. If you kind of
yeah.
catch my drift,
Don't want to use that part of your brain anymore. It's like I'm done. Just put it over there.
right? So it's nice to have like a mental break and play other games. And then some people don't like it, but like, hey, I need my mental break from work.
No, it makes absolute sense. And I
Yeah.
can relate. I can totally relate with the part of like burnout, and sometimes you're just not up to doing content for the channel. I can definitely relate.
Yeah, everybody goes through it, and it's just the life. You got stuff outside of video games
Oh yeah,
or simulators. Sorry.
yeah. Careful, SpongeBob.
Yeah, I gotta watch my mouth.
So with these newcomers, so there's all sides of the spectrum. There's no like leaning to one side or the other, but the general consensus that I get personally is that people don't want to read the manuals. I don't quite understand that, but I can see that the manuals are difficult to like. They're not made to read through like a book. No one is saying that. Everyone thinks you need to read the manual, go through it from page 1 to page 6900, and go through the whole thing. It is a document to reference when you have a question. Also, my biggest pet peeve is that when people go to a forums and they ask like how to take off in the F-16, and for whatever reason they expect for someone to put a paragraph of explaining how to take off in the F-16 when all of us know that it's more than a paragraph worth of information that needs to be put on a page. So there's videos, as Tricker said, there's videos to watch, plenty of videos to watch. There's the manuals to read. There's the option to just go out there and see what happens because you're not in danger. You can just go out there and see what works and what doesn't work. But always reference different material that can help you understand the aspect or the subject that you're wanting to learn with the manuals and other videos. But yeah.
I know you said, Prime, that you learned from joining a group. You can expand on that if you want. I was curious with Fisgus, like, did you start by watching people like online, or like how did you start out with like Falcon BMS?
Yeah. Well,
Go
ahead.
Yeah, go on.
No, go ahead.
For me, when like I said initially, I started Falcon, the version that it was way back in the day. But when I started with BMS itself, and then I joined the group that I joined at the time, which was first it was a group of Portuguese people, and then I went over to a different group, which was the first virtual fighter wing. Flying with them, especially the guys in the first virtual fighter wing, was revealing. And Prime, you touched on this earlier. It in multiplayer, a multiplayer conveys a bunch of different challenges and things that need to be talked about, that need to be coordinated, that you just don't need to with an AI flight, as well as shows limitations. of flying with AI, but again, it is what it is. It's AI. You have control over your own flight, your wingman. If you're the lead, you have control over your flight of 2 or 4, but you do not have communications with the AI package. They are going to go where they're going to go, and they're going to do whatever they want to do, and you just need to deal with that. Flying with people in multiplayer, especially co-op flights, there's a lot of things that I never really given much thought into, like times, who's gonna be where, when, who's gonna be, just the simple fact of like taxiing, who's gonna taxi first, because on single player on a campaign, you got AI aircraft taxiing around. If you start taxiing, they will stop, or they will like try to go around you, but they will not crash into you. If it's multiplayer, it's another person on that aircraft, and if the stuff is not coordinated, they might be taxiing and just be looking like, okay, I'm taxiing through this taxiway, and they might be distracted by whatever, and they could be looking the other way, and you come and you go into the taxiway, and bam, there's an accident. That coordination in BVR engagements, buddy lazing when for example, when you're doing air to ground work, passing target information to each other, all it's a whole new different environment. It's so much more expansive, and it's been it's been a great how am I going to put this? It's a great sadness for me that because of my personal life, I haven't had that much of an opportunity to fly multiplayer, like these big multiplayer events. The multiplayer I've been flying throughout the last 2 years, I've been with like a couple of people at most, like every 6 months, when before I used to fly multiplayer like every week, with at least like 8, 10, 12 people. But yeah, multiplayer showed to me, like Prime said initially, how much I didn't know, how many aspects of combat flight simming I never even considered, never even crossed my mind, with keywords, threats, how we're going to deal with them, who's going to deal with them, when they're going to deal with them, a bunch of different aspects to this, to tactics, strategy, that I never even crossed my mind.
So what you were trying to say is like you learned a lot in BMS from multiplayer aspect.
Absolutely, and if a lot, it showed me like how much I still had to learn, because like, okay, I can shoot missiles just fine, I can drop
Right.
bombs just fine, but how do I coordinate with others? Because in single player, you just, when I shoot a missile, whatever, don't even need to communicate. In multiplayer, that communication is more important, at least in organized, when I'm referring to like organized events, not like these airquakes or something like that, where like it's a free for all. But if you're doing a mission with a package with a bunch of different flights, this shot that you're taking, maybe you need to call that out, because that's going to be relevant to the people around you. Or like you're taking a harm shot, the people around you should know that you are taking that harm shot, and at what you are taking that ground shot. What are you targeting, for example? It just exposed me to a bunch of different things that I didn't know, and a bunch of teachings that a lot of people had to offer.
Yep. Yeah, with online multiplayer, yeah, like we brought up before, online multiplayer is a way you could find out really fast, sometimes too fast, that how much you don't know about Falcon BMS or anything like that. But going back to aviation in general, when you said communication, so you're learning how to fly the airplane, you're learning what the airplane is, how to use it, and also you're basically learning a different language. If you fly with people who are more, I guess, more aptitude, have bigger more knowledge on what actually happens in the communication aspect of Falcon BMS, because we've all heard the jargon: Fox 3, group, bullseye, lead, whatever, wingman, and different formations that you're in. Like, you need to know all these things, and it's a totally different language that you need to learn. And in multiplayer, it basically, teaches someone how to swim by throwing them into a pool, except you're not going to drown in online multiplayer. But I have seen where most people don't want to get into multiplayer because of that unknown that they don't know about. Also, I've heard people say they might be embarrassed of what they're gonna do or not do or whatever. When someone asks a question in BMS, they either like pull something out of their butt about whatever they asked about. So we're not testing you. We're just trying to see where our teaching needs to go, especially in a training mission. At Falcon Lounge, I try to create, I haven't done it in a while, but I try to create like specific training missions where it's like we're going to go out and there's going to be like 0 enemies. Like you don't have to worry about getting shot down. You don't have to worry about getting followed. You don't have to worry about getting locked up. You don't have to worry about any of that. The only thing you have to worry about is to not crash, which for some people that's like the top thing on their list to not do. So if that's the top thing on their list, they should not be worrying about the enemies. So I remove the enemies and just have them worrying about flying the airplane and focusing on communication because of those are the baseline things you need to know when getting into multiplayer. So you can, 1, have a better understanding what to expect, and 2, have a better knowledge of what you're getting into when you're flying with other people. But always, if you're trying to learn something, try to set the tone of the flight as a training flight instead of going into a 20-player 4-package mission and not knowing how to drop a bomb. And that's probably not going to look good for you, but they're not going to get mad at you, but it's going to be a little bit more of a frustration because they just spent an hour briefing and they only have 20-25 minutes of actual gameplay, and they have to now teach someone else how to drop a bomb while they're getting shot at. So the importance of multiplayer is very, very important.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say, like, don't get discouraged. If you are new to BMS or DCS or another sim IL2, whatever, don't be discouraged. It sounds very complicated because it is multiplayer, but no one's gonna like. I hope no one's gonna like be super effing mad at you if you screw up a call. But don't be discouraged, and it takes a lot of practice, but you'll get there. And there are more people out there in groups, whatever groups they might be. There's more people out there willing to teach you in these groups than there are people to get mad at you, and you will get there. It's like everything, like in multiplayer. Uh, it's like you're learning how to take off when you first start BMS or whatever sim. Practice. Takes a bunch of practice, but you get there. Eventually, you get there, sooner or later. But just don't get discouraged. Try it out. Go into the deep end. You'll find people to help you. I'm sure of it.
So for people that, me personally, like I don't fly Falcon BMS a lot. So like when I hear the jargon, like like bullseye, blah 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 blah, and singer, and sometimes I might say the wrong thing or mud this. So sometimes I say the wrong thing because I don't, I don't do Falcon BMS. It's like super serious, I guess if you want to put it that way. So like on DCS, like I say what I say, like Fox to Fox 3 at this, bandit at flight level, not flight level. Sorry, I'm thinking aviation right now. At the Angels 33 or, so like I'm usually, I would say that's my weak point in Falcon BMS right now is doing all the communication for the jargon for when I'm doing certain things. Like I'm foxing at this, I'm defending, I'm doing this. So like, where would somebody like myself or a new player find that information? Like, where would somebody, like get that information to really help them out?
So with that, it's there's some inside of the training manual. Let me look and make sure because I remember looking in there. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there about, especially in the AIM 120 boxing, I guess, chapter. But let me make sure it's in there. And so that's one way to do it. But reading is one thing. Like we all said, everybody learns different ways. But the next thing is to actually to watch videos. It's basically a fire hose of information, and you don't know where to put the information. But at least you could be aware of what you don't know, so you can go somewhere and maybe control F something, and find out what you heard in the videos, and maybe find a reference for that in some of the BMS references. But there are some in the training manual. Let's see, tactical turns, air refueling, low level.
I'm assuming you guys have a video on maybe a communication topic or.
I don't personally. I do not. And my communication isn't, especially since I stopped flying multiplayer regularly. My comms haven't always been
Well, it's like we were
been
saying
on
earlier.
point.
Like if you don't use it, you lose it, kind of thing. Like I was at a point
Absolutely.
where I was flying BMS quite a bit. I think it was like 4.35, so a few years ago. And my communication was definitely improving on what to say and how to say it. But now that I haven't done it in so much, in so long, that I've kind of like I can fumble my way through it, but like I sound stupid saying it. But I mean, like I'm ready to learn or figure out how to do it correctly. Especially if there's a written document or a video on the topic for brevity.
Yeah, I'm looking at, so in the training manual, BMS training manual, mission 18, radar missiles bar cap. It goes over some of the basics in there. It has beyond visual range tactics. It has leader's role, what a wall is, what a grind is, the wingman roles, stay visual, check radar, and then some tack turns information in there. Also, it goes in the BVR flow, what skate is. This is all like distances and risk levels in a BVR engagement. So you got skate, short skate, and bonsai, BVR timeline, the minimum targeting range, transition range, desired out range. That's really getting to the nitty gritty part of BVR. But once you understand that, it's super easy if you understand the details of BVR, because it's all a numbers game. Basically, if the other enemy, if their weapon cannot go farther than 25 miles, and you turn out, so turn away before that 25 miles, you should be able to get away from the enemy's missile 95% of the time. So it's all a numbers game with knowing when and where to turn out and like basically turn away from the enemy and start again. So it's basically like it's BVR jousting, making sure you're not close enough for them to hit you, but being far enough to be safe in that aspect. But it goes on in here. It's targeting. It says Fox 3 pre-briefing, targeted East group, West group, sorting of between or within the groups, West group, leader group, all that stuff in there, targeting, picture labeling, group azimuth 10. Like it goes into all that in the training manual on in chapter 18. That's a good place to start, and it does reference real life manuals that has pictures of it in there. But that's a great place to start, so you can understand at least what you're watching in some videos.
Okay. Yeah.
I would like to advertise for people that advertise, quote unquote. But I would like to mention a couple of places where people who are new and want to experience multiplayer for the first time and don't exactly want to commit to a like a full on group. There's places like Falcon Lounge and another. I'm not sure. Actually, I don't know if Falcon Lounge does organized flights, but I know another group called Falcon Events. They do organized flights and with random people. And I know they have what they used to. I think they still run them, like a training course, all done in multiplayer, which is very helpful to people just starting BMS. I know the guy or one of the guys that's in charge of that, called Micro, is part of the BMS team. And I actually know another person that went through that their course relatively recently, and they learned one hell of a lot. So if you are coming over, if for someone that's listening and they're coming over to BMS just now, but don't want to exactly commit right away to like an organized group, they can go to this Discord called Falcon Events and look around and see what they have to offer. It might be something that is of interest to you, and I can tell you that it's definitely effective. They're very effective at teaching for multiplayer.
And I have a video that I did a couple years ago on Falcon Lounge where I invited people to fly, and the flight was, like I said, no enemies, just flying, getting up there, doing some tack turns, understanding the brevity, getting used to someone leading you, getting used to following what the lead is saying, and different things like that. But I have the full video on YouTube. It's called, I'll have it in the show notes and the YouTube notes and whatever, but it's called "Starting Your First Online Mission in Falcon BMS." And so the name of it is "Starting Your First Mission Online in Falcon BMS," and that goes over the hour and 40 minutes that I spent with these couple of folks, and went through the briefing process, and they also asked questions, and they asked questions during the flight, and I went through all that stuff. So it's a really good thing to get in there. I went to the TAC view. That's another video to watch to understand what to expect in a multiplayer scenario when it comes to like the basics. When it comes to missions, you can watch any other mission, you can kind of see what to expect, but this is what to expect from a new person at a basic level to getting into multiplayer and flying with someone else. So with the new player thing coming along, kind of running out of time here, what is, well, for me, the biggest thing I think we've all kind of talked about it is the amount of time it takes. So, and not everyone has the amount of time it takes for other people to learn BMS. So that may slow your learning process. Some people could, knock out a whole lesson or a whole aspect of BMS in a month or two. Other people, that same amount of time or that same amount of information might take a year. So everyone is in different levels of experiences in BMS, and take that in consideration when you're flying with other people. Take that in consideration when you're commenting things, when you're saying, "Oh, you don't have the time for this" or whatever. But time is definitely a entry fee for Falcon BMS, because you have the monetary entry fee, you have the time entry fee, and sometimes the entry fee of time is just too expensive for them, and they're just not able to fly it all the time. So that's why we have this different levels of realism that people want in a simulator, and especially with BMS because of all the briefing and stuff. But when it comes to learning, when you do fly, always have the time, or at least the time, to talk to your flight lead, or in a text or messaging, whatever, to give the feedback and the debrief. The debrief is the most important part of the mission, so you understand what you did wrong and that you can get better next time. So if you said something wrong, like Tricker was saying, he says the wrong thing here and there. You don't say, "Oh, you said the wrong thing," when you're like in the middle of fighting. You take note of it and you say it in the debrief to make sure that that person knows that they said something wrong, and to maybe correct it or learn something later on, so that they could do better next time. Because sometimes the brevities can get really confusing. You have one brevity that's like, "I'm in danger," and then someone else uses another brevity where it's like, "I am in less danger than I was before," but you don't always know that because they use the wrong brevity. So different brevities have different levels of danger, and you need to use the right one so your flight lead can understand the situation and know what to do in that certain situation. Anything else from you guys before we start wrapping it up here?
Nope. Yeah, the debrief is extremely important, just from like a real world aspect, like from flight instructing. So like, like you go out with a student and they do all these like touch and goes, and they had a couple bad touch and goes. You don't just sit there and tell them like, "Oh, you suck, you're better, you're so bad," and just trying to encourage them and give them some tips on how to do things better. And then when you get back to the FBO, then you can go in there and have a nice little debrief, like, "Hey, like this, you did this, and let's clean it up next time." So yeah, I feel like, just as you were saying, just from real life, but in simulator life, debriefing is very important for educational purposes.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I heard on, I think it was when this YouTube channel, you guys probably know it, CW Lemoyne, and he was watching over Top Gun Maverick with another guy from a YouTube channel called Gonky. And I think it was Gonky that said, like, they were talking about that the training session with the dogfighting in the movie, and Gonky said, yeah, in real life, no one like tries to teach while the dogfight is going on. The cockpit is a terrible teaching space. They make note of it, maybe one or two corrections, but if it's not like uh, an immediate danger, it's something that needs to be called out immediately, they just save it for the debrief, and that's why the debrief is super important. And Prime was saying about time, if you fly BMS, if you're flying BMS multiplayer properly, give time to the briefing, which is very important, the mission itself, but also especially if you're learning the debriefing. The debriefing can be very extensive, and that's the big commitment of time. But again, no one's gonna berate you in BMS. Well, there might be some people that
Yeah,
are
there
out
might
there in
be.
groups that might berate you. But I will say, if you're in a hobby and if someone is berating you, look somewhere else. Look for a different group. That's all I'm gonna say. No one is here on a hobby to get yelled at unless we enjoy it. But I don't know. That's to each their own. I said, like I said, if you're in a hobby and someone is coming at you, berating you for something you're doing in a hobby, I mean, that's going a bit too far, I think.
I agree.
Yeah, and there's another aspect of that with sometimes people may not be used to a feedback and a debrief. So during a debrief, the point is to point out everything that you did wrong. You might have thought you did something right this time, might have thought did something right that time, but that's not the correct thing according to the person who has more experience than you. So don't take it personally that the people who are debriefing you are pointing out all your flaws. It may or may not, depending on where you are. It may be in front of the entire like package or whatever. But just try not to take it personally. Try to get better on it, and that's kind of it. We're a hobby. No one's in danger. No one's dying. No one's going to be in overseas, ejecting from an airplane. So we're just getting better, and we're just trying to have some fun.
Yeah, and to the people that teach, and I can say this not just by doing not by the tutorials that that I've been making, but back when I used to teach people in multiplayer flights how to do certain things, it is something of a like pride to see the people that you're trying to teach grow and get better and better and better at doing certain things, and to watch their progression to us that are on the other side teaching, accompanying that person through their process. It's a great pride to see them go far, regardless of how long it takes. But it's very enjoyable as someone that's teaching to see someone grow and reach whatever they reach, at least in my experience.
Yeah, I got the same. So yeah, we're running out on time here. About an hour and a half for this talk here. Great discussion, great points. I learned something. Hopefully the viewers learned something, and we'll go on to many more topics in the future. Make sure to, if this is on YouTube, make sure to comment down below if you like it. I'm open to suggestions of what else to talk about. If you're on Spotify, I think there's a comment thing on there as well. Comment what you want. I'm always on YouTube, so always you can message me on YouTube. But I do appreciate everyone listening, and I appreciate you two for coming and giving your thoughts and making it less of a monologue for me, because I don't like talking for an hour and a half as much as the next guy. But thank you for coming, and if there's anything else you guys want to talk about, or just last discussions here, just to say to the viewers, go ahead and feel free. But thanks everyone for watching.
No, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks for putting this together, and see you all soon. Oh, this was great.
Yep. See ya.